Hello, everyone, and welcome to Casual Experts Only, where we talk about all things nerdy. We are your casual experts, Mike and Luke, and this past weekend was the long-awaited Barbenheimer weekend. Yes, which for those like if anybody's listening that does not know what the hell that is, is basically just the Barbie movie and Oppenheimer released on the same day, the same weekend, and the internet just turned it into like this meme of
Yeah.
like which one, of like this big double feature weekend and which one you're gonna see first, all that kind of stuff. Which is a little bit like it is interesting. A lot of times things get more pitted against each other, and in fact,
Mm,
I'm pretty sure the original like design behind releasing the Barbie movie the same
yeah.
day as Oppenheimer is because Warner Brothers, which made Barbie, is kind of on bad terms with Christopher Nolan after at least
Right,
the
right.
old regime was the old leadership was on
Mhm.
bad terms with Christopher Nolan after he had some problems with the way they handled like streaming releases during COVID.
Yeah, yeah.
So he went over to Universal to make Oppenheimer.
Mhm.
So to be this really petty, the Warner Brothers leadership just decided to release Barbie the same day, but that instead of making it like a versus type thing on the internet where it's like like oh this movie versus this movie, it became more of
Mhm.
a like joint thing. There's of course there's people detractors online, but they're more outliers.
Yeah.
But yeah, but before we get into that and just the movies themselves, we're gonna tackle a few different things that have been going on in the news lately, including not a whole lot, but some stuff that came out of Comic Con this past
Mm,
weekend as well.
yeah.
Um, we kind of talked about this last weekend or last episode, but pretty much none of the major studios really went to Comic Con. At least none of the big comic ones like Marvel and DC were not present really. At
Right,
least
right.
not DC Studios. But like Netflix and Amazon Studios and stuff were there, so we'll talk about some of that stuff. But first off, I did want to just mention our other podcast, the
Mm,
Cultured Pull List. We do
yeah.
that in conjunction in partnership with the Cultured Nerd. And
Mhm.
if you're into comics at all, like if you collect them, read them, or are just interested in them, I would definitely suggest checking that out.
Yeah.
What we do every episode is we choose a graphic novel or a comic storyline, and we basically just summarize it, review it, talk about it, and also talk about some other current comics that we're reading. And yeah,
Mhm.
it's a fun time. So we just recently started a YouTube channel specifically for that show as well as social media. So please go check us out on YouTube and check out the Cultured Pull List on social media as well. There will be links to that in the description. But plugging ahead, let's get into some news. So let's talk about briefly the box office for Barbie and Oppenheimer this weekend. One of the
Yeah.
biggest of like this whole year. I think the only one that probably got bigger was Mario, maybe. Um,
Yeah, I think it's the biggest like weekend box
yeah,
office, like collective weekend of all time, I think is what I heard. Or one
really,
of.
really.
Yeah.
I definitely since COVID, I know, which isn't
Well,
saying a
yeah,
whole
yeah, yeah.
lot, but yeah. So Barbie over the weekend made 162 million, and
Mhm.
Oppenheimer made 82.5 million, which is like probably like half as much, but it's not too surprising because it's an R-rated 3-hour movie. Whereas Barbie has a wider appeal, so it's not super surprising.
Right, but the one interesting thing about that is that I figured that most of the Oppenheimer tickets are going to be in IMAX. They'll cost like two or three times more, at
Oh,
least. So
yeah.
I'm surprised it's such a difference. I don't know.
Yeah, that's actually that is an interesting point. Yeah, I'm not sure how many because I didn't see it in IMAX, but
Mm.
like I feel like Die Hard fans would go see it in IMAX, but I didn't really care
Yeah,
either
that's the
way.
reason
So,
why I haven't seen it yet because there's that special,
oh, the 70
the
millimeter.
special sell. Yes, that's in the area. That's near where I live,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's sold out for like the next. Well, it was sold out for 10 days. We had to book it 10 days in advance,
Oh
and so that's
wow,
why I haven't seen it yet. But it's
damn.
like, yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
kind of like why I haven't like I don't know like I didn't care now because it's like it's just the explosion. because
Sure.
I've seen it and it's like 2 hours and 50 minutes of talking, and then there's
Mm,
less than 10 minutes of like explosion and visual stuff. So I didn't really know if it
right.
was really worth it, but yeah, we'll
Sure.
see.
Yeah.
But yeah, so pretty big weekend. Actually did pretty well. I feel like it's been kind of like a straight year of flops almost.
Mhm.
There's been a couple, like I think Guardians did well. Mission
Yeah.
Impossible is doing all right, but it was, and now it just kind of got
Yeah.
blown out of the water.
Exactly.
um,
Exactly.
so yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess we'll see how these perform ultimately. So recently, The Flash released on digital,
Mhm.
and there was this deleted scene that basically talked about why Michael Keaton's Batman retired. Because
Okay.
in the actual movie, it just kind of there was some throwaway line about Gotham being the safest city now, so he's not needed. But
Mhm.
apparently, there's another reason, and the director actually spoke on it.
Okay.
And he said that my idea was he did something that goes against his code and killed a criminal in front of the criminal's child, not
Oh
knowingly,
wow.
but he still did it, which is an exact mirroring situation of what happened to him when his
Mhm.
parents were killed in front of him, at yada yada, and then that created the monster that the Batman is. So yeah, that was cut out, that whole thing. So I'm curious, like, if there was a reason why it was cut out. I mean, it is a little. I mean, it's not that that movie didn't have dark moments, you know.
Yeah.
So it's not like they couldn't have handled that. And I'm not sure how I feel, like whether I feel like that needed to be in the movie or not. I felt like it was fine without it, but I guess it would have been interesting. But at the same time, I feel like at this point it's not the most original Batman take. I feel like we've had very
Yeah.
similar
And I
things.
feel like with that, it almost like demands like some more like
Uh
exploration of
huh.
that idea. Because like if Batman did something like that, then that implies that there's like a negative evil Batman out there, and then it's like that sounds interesting. So it feels like it doesn't really fit with the overall film, and it is kind of an
Yeah.
interesting idea, but I don't know, it doesn't really fit, at least for my opinion.
I think if like if there had been more development, if it was more than
Right.
just this one deleted scene,
Yeah.
if there was like a deleted like whole like storyline with more than one scene, maybe.
Right.
But yeah,
Right.
like considering it just one like almost throwaway unnecessary scene, then
Hmm.
Also,
Hmm.
Michael Keaton's Batman is a murderer. So no, I mean like he has
Yeah.
no
No.
problem
Yeah.
killing
He
people
is.
in the other
Correct.
movies. So I don't know if
Right.
that
Right.
would
Right.
like it would definitely go hand in hand with like more recent interpretations of Batman and
Hmm.
definitely the internet's idea of Batman.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't feel like it really fits with Michael Keaton's Batman because he didn't really seem
Mhm.
to have many qualms about straight up just killing people. So
Right. Right.
apparently there's been these rumors going around that Spider-Man 4 is in development, which when you actually look at where this rumor comes from, it's like no. Apparently it just comes from something Thomas Hayden Church, the actor who played Sandman in Spider-Man 3. Um, he
Oh,
just
so
had
this is not Tom Holland's Spider-Man 4. This is the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 4.
right.
Okay. Okay.
Spider-Man 4. No, yeah, the Tom Holland ones is actively in development. I think they're like,
Okay.
from what I heard, that last I heard, they're finishing the script, which obviously they're, not now
Yeah.
because of the writer's strike, but they were.
Right.
Yeah, so this would be Spider-Man 4, directed by Sam Raimi with Tobey
Okay.
Maguire.
Okay.
And basically, Thomas Hayden Church said in a recent interview with comicbook.com. Um, yeah, I don't even know what the original question was, but he just said there's always been some kind of I've heard rumors that Sam Raimi was going to do another Spider-Man movie with Toby, and if that happens, I'd probably campaign to maybe at least do a cameo. Yeah, because I think the question was, would he return to Sandman? But it's
Mhm.
like that doesn't give you any like because there were rumors right after No Way Home, like, oh, Spider-Man 4, Amazing Spider-Man 3 is going to come out.
Right.
So that doesn't mean, and also he doesn't give a timeline. Like he said, I heard rumors that Sam Raimi was going to do another Spider-Man movie, like that could
Mhm.
have been right after the third one came out. Like there's no
Right.
real context to this, but of course this made the internet go like, oh, there's rumors that it's Spider-Man 4. I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
Which, like,
yeah,
I assumed something actually happened, but then I looked into it, like, oh no, it's just this offhand comment. The internet ran with it. Yay. So,
yeah.
oh boy. Oh well. Um, yeah, already. Actually, I think this one's. Apparently, Bryan Cranston spoke at I think the SAG strike.
Yeah, the one in New York. I think Michael Shannon was there too,
Oh,
from what I tell. Yeah.
interesting. And shoot, I thought I had the quote from
Yeah, and then Bob
it.
Odenkirk was
Oh,
at the one in LA as well.
okay. Yeah, and yeah, and this is what Bryan Cranston said, or at least an excerpt from his
Mhm.
speech at the New York SAG strike. Is it like, are they like striking together, the WGA and this? I mean, like I know at the same time, but
Yes.
are they
Yeah, they're
marching together? I guess is my
yeah, and I think the UPS is there too. The actual like
really,
delivery service. Yeah, like,
like
everyone's like
they're striking too.
yeah, yeah. So like
Um,
everybody's together at this point.
yeah, I mean, I've also been hearing inklings that GM employees might strike
Yeah.
this summer.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's a fun time to be alive, that's for sure.
Right,
But
right.
this is what Bryan Cranston had to say. I know, sir. I believe he was talking to Bob Iger.
Okay.
This is directed at Bob Iger, which we talked about it last episode, or no, we talked about it in a video,
Yeah.
that's on our YouTube channel. Check that out. No, but so he was talking to Bob Iger, and he said, "I know, sir, that you look through things through a different lens. We don't expect you to understand who we are, but we ask you to hear us, and beyond that, to listen to us when we tell you we will not be having our jobs taken away and given to robots. We will not have you take away our right to work and earn a decent living. And lastly, and most importantly, we will not allow you to take away our dignity." So that
Mhm.
is what he had to say. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Oh, yeah, also, this kind of related. Apparently, The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, contributed a historic
Yeah,
amount to the SAG
I heard
AFTRA
about that.
Foundation Relief Fund,
Mhm.
which I was kind of like, I was a little bit like in the cynical part of my mind afraid that, this is all like all the like famous actors supporting this and everything, isn't going to last, I guess, and eventually
Mm.
they're gonna go back to work, and the little guys are like, gonna have to like stay out in the cold,
Sure.
basically. Or either that, or because like the strategy of these big companies was to wait
Mhm.
for, the
Right.
SAG members to be homeless, basically. Whereas the really famous actors aren't really in any sort of danger
Exactly.
of
Yeah.
that. So I was kind of afraid, like, oh, all the little guys are going to be homeless,
Mhm.
whereas the big famous rich actors aren't really going to be that affected.
Right.
But I am glad to see at least one, you know, A-list celebrity
Yeah.
donating some to that fund to help the
Hmm.
less
Hmm. For
fortunate
sure.
actors. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so let's talk about some San Diego Comic Con announcement stuff, whatever. So the Invincible season 2 trailer dropped,
Hmm.
and that, well, it dropped as well as an Adam Eve prequel, like full length episode.
Yeah.
It's like 50
Yeah.
minutes.
Hmm.
So that's actually on Prime right now.
Yes.
But Invincible season 2 is premiering on November 3rd, and they will release the first 8 episodes weekly. I think like the first few are dropping at the same time, and then after that, it's going to be the
Okay.
first 8 episodes, and then they're going to take a mid-season break and release the rest next year in 2024.
How many
Which,
episodes are there overall?
good question. I'm guessing at least 12.
Okay.
I mean if they're releasing 8, I doubt they would just release two more and like
Right.
wait till 2024 to release the next two. I'm not sure if it says
Hmm.
officially. Well, let me pull up the IMDb real quick. But
Because a lot of shows like this normally are just 8 episodes, but they have eight and then they're gonna have a break and then they're gonna have more after that.
right, and how many episodes did season 1 have? Was that just
I
8?
think it was just eight. Yeah, I don't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure it was just eight.
Okay, so this, Yeah, the first season had 8, yes, and the
Yeah.
second season also, it seems like season 3 there's going to be less of a gap between season 2 and 3
Yeah.
because it's
I
been
heard
like
that.
2.5 years since the first season, I think.
Yeah. Summer of
Um,
21. Yeah.
huh. That's weird. So on IMDb, it says that season 2 only has 8 episodes,
Okay.
but according to this Verge article, they're gonna release the first 8 episodes on a
So
weekly
maybe
basis.
they just announced 8 and there's more after that, but we don't know exactly how many.
Yeah, maybe something like that. And apparently, this season's also gonna tackle a little bit of the multiverse, according
Hmm,
to
of course it
Robert.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, right. According to Robert Kirkman, the
Hmm.
creator of the comic, and also is like seems very heavily involved with the show. But he talked with Collider, and yeah, this is what he had to say about it. He said, "It's funny because I don't think I knew about Far From Home, which I'm assuming he means No Way Home, Far From Home, or Spider Verse, or maybe Spider Verse was out. But when we decided to do this for season 2, I didn't know that there was even a Flash movie. It's literally
Hmm.
everywhere. I don't know what it is about it. I think it's a great tool to use to bring different incarnations of things in, which I think is kind of becoming, I'm gonna say, easy button. It's like, let's make this cool. Let's make this cool. Bring that guy from the other thing in here, and it's super cool. And as a fan, I love it. He also said, but I will say that we're using Angstrom Levy's multiverse capabilities in a much different way. It's not just about pulling different things that you may love into a story through the multiverse. It's a very character-driven story. There's a lot of drama to it, seeing the sliding doors aspect of another dimension and finding out like
Hmm.
how things went a different way when different decisions were made. We're kind of drilling it down to its simplest form, and it's not this massive, unwieldy thing. So
Okay.
yeah, so it seems like it's more going to be like part of the story, very story driven. It's not just going to be like, oh, let's bring stuff in from from the multiverse kind of thing.
Yeah, because
Um,
with other multiverse properties, it's normally like, oh, hey, there's this Batman actor, or Spider-Man
yeah,
actor, but with Invincible, they don't really have that. So
no.
it's gonna be interesting to see like what they do with it. That's different.
Well, and he said it's going to be the more like tradition. Yeah, the way they're going to do it is more traditional. So I'm assuming it's going to be more like different timelines
Sure.
than like other worlds where different actors play different characters. That kind of
Mhm.
thing.
Yeah.
But that should be interesting. I haven't really read much of the comics, so I don't know if they do that in
Yeah,
the
I
comics at
haven't
all.
either.
That being said, I feel like they can do some interesting, not necessarily multiverse stuff, but like just image character world building stuff in this series,
Mm,
because there are a lot of really good image characters that all exist in the same universe, like Spawn
yeah.
and Shadowhawk and everything, are in the
Mhm.
same continuity as Invincible, and it might be kind of interesting to include that. Also, like, and of course, with the multiverse thing, people have been saying like, "Oh, Spider-Man's gonna be in it," because Josh Keaton, the voice actor for Spider-Man in the Spectacular Spider-Man series, he
Yeah.
is in this season, but he is a voice actor. He's done other stuff, so
Right.
but that immediately made people on the internet going like, "Oh my god, there's gonna be a Spider-Man Invincible crossover,"
I
which
really hope that's not the case.
yeah, I mean, it would be cool like at first, but then it'd be like, what?
Right.
Like it'd be like, oh, fun crossover, but what? Like this doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense. So
Right.
yeah, we'll see how that goes, but. Plus, we've already had like a bunch of Spider-Man multiverse stuff recently.
Exactly. Exactly.
uh, but apparently DC is doing a crossover event this year in the comics, which is going to be Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong.
Yeah. I heard
Yeah,
about
and
that.
that for the first issue is releasing on October 17th.
Mhm.
And yeah, I'm very curious, like what the hell this is going to be. Like it's sort of a mixed bag of being like this is really ridiculous, but I'm kind of all for it. No, but
Yeah.
it's like it seems like they're using like what continuity is this in? Because
Exactly. Yeah.
Godzilla and Kong have the same designs as they do in the Warner Brothers movies.
Hmm.
So it was like, is this supposed to be canon to or is it just like they're just not going to worry about that and they're just like, you know?
Yeah, and because also it's like in the main continuity, the Justice League isn't a thing anymore. And so like, are
That's
they
true
gonna just
too.
bring him back after like 4 months and be like, the
Yeah.
Justice League is back? Like, I don't know. Like, what? Yeah,
I mean, I'm guessing it's probably going to be like an Elseworlds thing.
I think so. Yeah.
Because if you look at the art for it, like all of the costumes for the heroes look just kind of like basic classic, costumes. So it's probably just going to be like its own continuity, like kind of out of everything, outside of everything. But what I really like is there's this one variant cover, and it literally has Batman in a giant Batman like mech suit fighting Godzilla. And
Mm,
like
yeah.
it's literally like the thing where people go like, who would win between Godzilla and Batman? Well, Batman, if he had prep time, he'd just make a giant thing and fight him.
Right, right.
Like they're actually doing that. So that should be interesting to say the least. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The Borderlands movie that is apparently coming out on August 9th, 2024. So
Mhm.
next year. I really don't know much about Borderlands the game. I just know it exists.
Yeah, I don't either.
um. Yeah, just a couple more things from Comic Cons. A trailer dropped for the Spider-Man 2 game for PlayStation,
Yeah.
and it seems heavily suggested that Harry Osborn's going to be Venom,
Mhm.
which was kind of suggested at the end of the first game and like a post-credit scene.
Okay.
So that makes sense. And there is also a special edition PlayStation 5 console that is going to be sold. I think it's gonna hit stores in September, but the pre-order is starting this Friday, July
Mhm.
28th. But apparently, what they're also doing is you can buy the like the plates for the PS5, like the special edition Spider-Man one, so you don't have to buy the whole console if you want it.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, and they're also releasing the special edition controller separately as well.
Mhm.
So that's good for people that already have PlayStation 5s.
Yeah, yeah.
They don't have to like buy the whole new set to have a cool thing.
Mhm.
um, a couple new DC animated movies are confirmed for
Right, right.
next year. They are doing a Watchmen movie,
Yeah.
which not really sure if it's going to be just a straight up adaptation of of like the graphic novel again, or they're doing
Mhm.
something different like the HBO series did.
Right, right.
And they're also doing Crisis on Infinite Earths, which I
Yeah.
find interesting because they haven't done much yet with this new like animated continuity.
Mhm.
They've done like 5 movies maybe. It's kind of like
Right.
that's they haven't even had like a real Justice League movie.
Mhm.
The Justice League just sort of formed off screen and they just did some stuff. So I
Right.
feel like this Crisis on Infinite Earths is kind of an interesting choice. I If they're going to just straight up adapt the comic storyline,
Mhm.
but otherwise they might be trying to do more of like like an animated multiverse
Sure.
movie, like bringing in stuff from like the Bruce Timm verse
Yeah.
or like the
Yeah.
last animated, which personally I'd be more interested in because I'm not super invested in the new animated movies. Like they're fine,
Mhm.
but like I feel like they don't have the same um I don't know, flair or even just continuity as the last animated universe.
Sure.
So I guess we'll see how that goes. But to be honest, I don't really think they even said for sure if it's going to be in um the new continuity or not. So
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
I have no idea. But like the Watchmen one should be interesting because
Yeah.
I feel like that's been. I mean, we already have a live action movie that was very similar to the comic, that has a few minor alterations, but also like how are they going to adapt that into an hour and a half, like hour and 20 minute
Right.
animated movie? There's a lot that happens.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that'll be interesting to see like what they're doing and if this means like it could mean nothing, but does this mean they're gonna like focus a little more on Watchmen characters and other DC stuff going forward? Because that is
Right.
just kind of random, like a Watchmen animated movie. Like
Mhm.
why now? It's been
Right.
like several years since the movie came out. There have been no new Watchmen comics recently. Doomsday Clock was a few years ago. So was the
Yeah.
HBO. So yeah, I don't kind of interesting. definitely gonna keep my eyes open for more info on that.
Hmm.
And last little thing, Mortal Kombat 1. Apparently, like this was rumored like a few months ago, but apparently it's official that Homelander, Omni-Man, and Peacemaker are going to be playable characters in the game. I'm not sure if they're gonna be in the like the base game or if they're going to be like a DLC. I'm
Yeah.
guessing they're gonna be like DLC characters, but I
Hmm.
guess we'll see. But that's interesting. I feel like Homelander and Omni-Man are kind of like the same power wise.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what distinguishes the two characters. But
Hmm.
Peacemaker is surprising. I never would have
Yeah.
guessed out of all DC characters, and it's definitely like the John Cena version. So
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
interesting. But yeah, that's pretty okay. Yeah, that's pretty much all the news. The last news is Barbie related, so it kind of segues into
Right.
our discussion of Barbie. But for those of you who don't know, which I'm guessing that means you haven't seen Barbie, so I'm just gonna put a spoiler warning here right now. We are gonna
Yeah.
be talking spoilers in this podcast, but um, in the movie there is like a very brief like Snyder cut joke, and this like came out like the day that this movie came out and caused certain areas of the fandom to get all mad.
Mhm.
And
Right.
if you see the actual movie, it's so like mundane and like I don't
Yeah,
know.
in the context, it's not really making fun of the
No,
Snyder Cut. It's making fun of
no.
something else by way of the Snyder Cut.
Yeah, it's basically like the yeah, it's basically just the Barbie in question, had no agency or mind of her own
Right.
because of the whole like, patriarchy can take over things. So
Exactly.
it was
Exactly.
like she was just into everything her Ken was into.
Mhm.
So
Right.
that was literally it. It wasn't even anything negative about the Snyder cut or anything.
Exactly.
And it's just
Exactly.
like, okay. But that doesn't stop people from being mad. And I feel like the people that actually are mad about it don't even know the context. They just know, oh,
Right.
they
Right.
made fun of us. I'm like, okay, all right. But
Hmm.
Greta Gerwig actually came out and talked about it with comicbook.com um, when she was asked about, kind of like the backlash, if you want to call it that. I mean,
Hmm.
and she said, I didn't even realize that. I didn't even because I don't have a dog in this fight. I didn't even really know. I knew it was a thing. I don't know the contours of all the ins and outs, but it's the kind of thing that I vaguely know. And I think that was the thing that it was like if writer Barbie had a vague knowledge of, and then all of a sudden in a certain state it really meant a lot to her, and then it went away. Like which we kind of said, and also I feel like fans, which I myself, was a big fan of the Snyder Cut, and I
Yeah.
was kind of part of the release the Snyder Cut movement. I guess like I didn't like do all like the crazy stuff other people did, but
Hmm.
I posted a hashtag or two, that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
But I feel like Snyder fans need to understand that most normal people don't freaking know like what the hell this is. Like like
Right.
to most people it's like, oh, the Snyder Cut, yeah, all right. They don't know like they don't know all the ins and outs of all the messed up stuff Warner Brothers did to the original
Right.
movie, and like
Right.
Zack Snyder and all that stuff. So it's like most people don't, so if they like throw it in a movie, they're like, oh, well, whatever, it's not like Greta Gerwig, oh,
Hmm.
she hates Snyder fans. Like, okay, all right.
Right. Right.
I mean, we already know she hates men, so I guess it makes sense that she would also hate Spider fans.
Did you hear? So did you? I was heard on Instagram. It was probably the funniest thing people are saying about this movie is that
Mm.
like it's telling us to kill babies. Have you heard about this?
No, what the fuck?
People
No.
watch. So someone on the internet saw the opening scene and they're like, "Oh,
Oh my
this that
god.
they want us to kill babies. That's what this
You
is."
got it.
And then they're also taking the joke about the pregnant doll and they're like, "Oh, okay, this movie hates babies and they want us to actively kill babies." And I think that's just so funny.
That's
Because like the
insane.
opening scene is a reference to 2001, and then the
Yeah.
pregnant doll is actually a real doll, and it was
Yeah.
discontinued by Mattel, and so that was more a Mattel joke than an actual making fun of pregnant people joke.
Well, yeah, and they didn't
Yeah,
murder Midge. Like they
right,
they were they were just like, oh yeah, we forgot you existed. That kind of stuff. They
exactly,
weren't like kill
right.
her. People are crazy, man.
Yeah.
I like it's like they're either just nuts or they're purposefully just like making shit up to stir other
Mm,
people up, you know.
right, right.
Um, but let's get into actually talking about the movie Barbie.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah, you saw this and not Oppenheimer, so
No, yeah, I mean, well, last episode we discovered that I hate women, so now I have to hate men as well.
yeah, that's true.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah, no, I
you
mean,
just hate everyone,
exactly. I hate everybody equally.
huh?
Yeah, I mean, we plan on we tried to watch them both in the same day, but we couldn't
Yeah,
because I mentioned we wanted to see it in the special. We see Oppenheimer in the special format.
right.
But the plan was always to watch Barbie first because
Sure.
we wanted to kind of end on like the downer of Oppenheimer, if
Yeah,
that makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah. No,
Um, so yeah, we saw Barbie and I loved it, man. It's probably my I know I said this with Mission Impossible, but it's my new favorite movie of the year,
is
Barbie.
it
I loved it
okay?
so much. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I ended up seeing it Thursday night because I was like, I don't really think I have any friends who necessarily want to see it in theaters, at least,
Mm,
that are like, I could just call me like, hey, you want to see a movie tonight, So
right.
I ended up going by myself and I felt like such a creep because it was like 80% women. I'm like, like, should I be here? No.
Yeah,
And like the guys
right.
that were there were like with their wives or like girlfriends. I'm like,
Mm,
like, I swear I'm not a weirdo. No. But no, like it's definitely not like the way some people are talking about it online. It's like they think it's like a little girl's movie, which okay, yeah, like fair enough. It's Barbie, but if you
right.
looked into any of the like promotion material, like the trailers or anything,
Mhm.
it's clear this was not made for little kids. Like I don't think it's necessarily that inappropriate. Like I feel like any inappropriate jokes would go over kids' heads.
Yeah, it's
But
just very like mature and like adult and like its content, like its
right,
subject matter. It's not really meant for children, if that makes
it's
sense.
definitely for like adults who grew up either playing with Barbies or aware of the cultural impact of Barbies.
Right, right.
So like I don't think it would necessarily be a terrible thing to bring like a 10-year-old kid to it, but they'd probably like bored out of their minds. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
it really depends on the kid.
Yeah, right.
But I probably wouldn't bring anybody younger than like 10 because they'd be like, what? Like what the hell's going on?
Hmm, hmm.
But yeah, no, it was a very good movie. It was really funny.
Yes.
Like I expected it to be funny, but it was just like almost nonstop laughs,
Right,
which was
right.
great. And it was a real mix of like very meta satirical humor and just
Hmm.
like stupid stuff, like
Yeah,
stupid
right.
random humor, and like Ken was definitely a standout for me. Like I think Ryan
Right.
Gosling, like this is probably the most comedic role he's ever done,
Hmm.
and
For sure.
he did such a good job. He was like so funny the whole movie.
Hmm.
Um, and like I mean, like Margot Robbie did an awesome job as Barbie as well. I mean, like really all the actors in this did an
Oh
excellent
yeah.
job for what they were
Great cast.
going
Yeah.
for. Oh yeah, yeah, very good cast. I like there was like a couple random fight scenes that were really funny, like when Alan just started to like beat the crap out of those guys. That was
Yes.
which be speaking of
Oh,
Alan, what a great character and what a
yeah, he's
great way to
fantastic.
include Michael Cera. Like that
Yeah.
was like he was just
Yeah.
perfect for that.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I really liked how it started out, and like I wasn't really sure where it was going at first, because like at first
Hmm.
it was very much more like somewhat feminist messaging, and then I was
Right.
like, like where are they going with this? Is this gonna like go like have an interesting point or anything, or is it just gonna but like it was actually very nuanced what they
Right.
did.
Exactly.
It wasn't a typical, like the way people are portraying it online, which I don't even think half of them have even seen it. I think the ones that
Right.
have
Right.
totally missed the point of the movie. It will
Exactly.
either willfully or not, because there's definitely some people that benefit from this like hate mongering, where it's just like this sucks, give
Right.
me views, and then there's I think other people that just went over their heads and like they heard the first like feminist talking point and they're just like, oh well, my
Hmm.
brain's shutting off.
Yeah, I think on the surface level it is very feminist, but if you
Hmm.
dig deeper, it's like it's more about like discovering yourself and being like okay with who you are. Because if you look at
Yeah.
like Ken's arc throughout the movie,
Yes.
he kind of starts out with like his whole identity is Barbie, and then
Yeah.
his whole identity is the patriarchy, and then at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
movie, he just has to be content with himself, and that's like the whole
Yeah.
movie is less about like
Yeah.
feminism and then that sort of thing. It's more just like being okay with who you are, which is sort of, I think, the antithesis of what Barbie as like a product is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. And to me, I think that it was also kind of saying like feminism and the patriarchy, like taken, to the extremes, like they're both not good,
Sure.
because even like everyone thought Barbie world was perfect, but then by the end they realized that like the Kens were basically like women in the real world, just kind of
Yeah.
like cast off to the side and like an afterthought. Um,
Mhm.
so like I thought that was very interesting, and I feel like also like Barbie literally helped Ken find himself, like you said, and like there was even a scene where she said, I'm sorry that I took you for granted. And it's
Yeah.
like I don't know how you can walk away like truly being like, oh, this movie hates men. Cause like I've seen
Mhm.
like some movies that are much more, like that are,
Yeah.
very like I feel like most Hollywood attempts to tackle feminism are very like ham-fisted and are
Right.
just like it's either like women are good or men are good. You can't have both, and it's like what.
Right.
So I
Exactly.
feel like this
Exactly.
is a much more nuanced take on that, and like you said, it's more about finding yourself. And yeah, because like it was Barbie, Ken, and even the America Ferrera
Mhm.
character.
Yeah.
And there was even a scene where she talked about like it being why can't women just like be able to do what they want to do, like whether it's
Mhm.
being a mom or being like having a career or both, like why do you have
Right.
to choose between everything, that kind of thing. So it's like there are a lot of different messages in this, but
Mhm.
not conflicting. There was just
Right.
a lot they were trying to tackle. I think they did a pretty good job
Yeah.
for like what boils down to just kind of a fun comedy, really,
Mhm.
when you really come
Right.
down to it. I do feel like there were a couple of times where they were a little on the nose with like some of the monologues, but it wasn't like I wasn't sitting there cringing like
Mhm.
some movies or shows.
Right.
Like random examples, Supergirl, where they would just go
Mhm.
on these like really just horrible, horribly written
Yeah.
tirades that just felt like a tweet.
Right. Right.
This like at least they were well written
Mhm.
monologues, though they I feel like they're a little on the nose sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, but I kind of expected Will Ferrell to be in it a little more, to
Yeah, I
be
feel
honest
like my
with you.
one criticism of this movie
Yeah.
is sort of that whole subplot, I guess you could say. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
really fit. It's not that it was bad, it just doesn't
Mm-hmm.
really like fit with the rest of the movie. I mean, it's sort
Yeah.
of like I guess it kind of feeds into the whole patriarchy thing, but it feels
Mm-hmm.
sort of out of place.
I felt like it was important in that like it was Mattel and you had to have like kind of
Right.
an origin for Barbie and all that, but yeah, at the same time they didn't do a whole lot. Will Ferrell and the board members, they were more there just for a few chuckles, and then
Right.
I guess they chased, but yeah, like I feel like they kind of would have gone like they didn't really affect the plot that much, which was maybe the
Yeah.
point. I don't know. But uh yeah, I'm trying to think if they really like affected the
I
plot that
mean,
much, and
there
not
was that
really.
whole thing with Ruth, which I really liked, but I feel like you could
Hmm.
probably cut Mattel out and still keep her in
Right.
some way.
That's
And
true.
because the point was the whole point was like Barbie goes to the real world, then Ken leaves,
Yeah.
and then Barbie goes back to Barbie Land. I feel like you could do that whole thing without Mattel being there.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like that wasn't really necessary. And like speaking of Mattel and everything, I feel like they gave Barbie like enough of a reason or an origin without really delving in depth, which
Mm,
like I would have been fine either way, but they definitely could have dug themselves a hole if they tried to over explain like, well, Barbie Land is here, and then you like kind of like try to explain like the Tree of Realms or something,
right, right.
like in Thor, whereas they're just like, given how zany it was, you didn't need all this explanation. I'm kind of glad they went the route where they're just like, yeah, you just
Hmm.
do all these stupid things, you end up in the real world, and then you do them
Right.
backwards. Like, cut back,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that was
yeah.
enough. You didn't really even need to know like how is how are they like dolls in Barbie Land, but not really in the real world? Like, are they actually
Hmm.
made of like, are they humans made of plastic? Like, they didn't get into all that. They're just like, who cares?
Right. It's just
um,
important that they don't have genitals. That's the only important
right?
thing.
Yeah, yeah, that's an important thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
which they made a couple references to that, which was funny.
Hmm. Right.
Um, but Barbie Land itself was very like it looked really cool. Like
Yeah.
it looked like just a life-size Barbie playset, really, which to the point where nothing was really real. Like all the food and like
Yeah.
water like didn't really exist. You just had to they were like pretending basically.
Right. And I
Which was
think
funny.
it was all like practical sets and they were all based on
Yeah,
real
it looked
products
like
and I
it.
think it looks really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah, like even the beach and everything like looked just
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's all the sets looked very like they looked good and bad at the same time because like they were
Right.
supposed to look, plasticky.
Exactly.
That was the
Yeah.
point. So yeah. Oh, and speaking of beach, I like that line where Ken just like, my job is beach.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was funny. Yeah, I really liked Ken's arc throughout this.
Oh,
Which
yeah.
like he just went from like being like obsessed with Barbie to like being obsessed with the patriarchy, like you said. Like
Mhm.
and I really did like that whole scene with him going off and just discovering all this like male centered stuff. Like
Yeah.
and I love the part where he's like, he just like, I'd like a job, and they're like, well, normally you need a master's degree, like an MBA, and this is, all this stuff.
Right. Right.
And like he went to a hospital. So I'd like to perform surgery. I'm like, what?
Mhm.
But
Right.
yeah,
Right.
that was really good. And when they were at the high school or the middle school, he was like, I'm gonna go in here and look at books on trucks or something like that.
Mm.
It
Yeah.
was pretty funny. But yeah, what did you think about that storyline with like the daughter slash the mom and kind of how they fit into like the story with Barbie and her development?
Yeah, I feel like with a story with Barbie, I feel like you can't really tell it without
Mm.
having a mother-daughter relationship to some extent.
Yeah.
But I feel like I don't know, I feel like they were just there
Mm-hmm.
to serve the plot. I didn't really
Yeah.
feel any emotional connection with
Sure.
those characters. Not that they were bad, I just didn't really other than the monologue at the end, I don't really feel like they really had any stand-up moments, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like the mom was just there to be like, this is what it's like for modern day women, basically.
Hmm.
And the daughter was almost like, this is like the cynical kid perspective now, because like there was that scene where she basically called Barbie a fascist,
Right,
which,
right.
and it's so funny. Like, so people are like freaking out about that. I'm like, Jesus, it's a comedy, people.
Mm.
Like, do you
Yeah.
really think the people who made the Barbie movie are like, Barbie's a fascist? Give her a little like Nazi uniform. Like what? Like
Right.
okay. Um
Yeah.
yeah, but I thought that yeah, I definitely agree. I feel like at the same time there did kind of need to be a connection between
Mhm.
Barbie and it definitely did thrust her forward because the whole reason Barbie became self-aware is because the mom kind of started playing with,
Right,
her old
right.
Barbies, but
Hmm.
instead of having like the childlike innocence that I guess all the other like Barbies who are played by with kids have,
Yeah.
she kind of brought her own insecurities and fears and everything into that. And I did kind of think that
Mhm.
was an interesting way to get Barbie to have like an existential crisis, I guess.
Yeah.
I feel like the only other thing that would have made sense is if somehow there was a flaw in like the way she was made at like Mattel or something. But
Mm.
considering like they're not robots, like
Yeah.
I don't know how you would do that. But
Right. Yeah. That yeah, that kind of reminds me of did you see the 2019 Child's Play movie? Because that was Chucky's
no, but
origin
I
in that
know that
movie.
yeah, he was like a
There was like a
robot.
disgruntled worker or whatever in Thailand.
Oh,
Um
that's weird.
yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
that's a strange movie. Anyway, Barbie.
yeah.
I the music in it, there's only a couple musical numbers, but they
Mm.
were all very, very
They're
good.
very good. Like the
Yes.
disco party scene was very
Mm,
well choreographed, and then like the whole like Ken fight thing was very well done.
yes.
I think the only like this is like pretty much my only criticism besides the Will Ferrell thing, and like it's very minor. I do feel like, and like I get it because they're Barbies. On the one hand, I do feel like because like I feel like the whole message was kind of trying to resonate with normal women, especially normal people. And
Yeah.
they did make a meta joke about this, but I feel like they maybe slightly shot themselves in the foot by like making literally every cast member like gorgeous, you know? Like they
Yeah.
did kind of make a meta joke about like, oh, casting Margot Robbie, you know, in this. But I do feel like
Yeah.
there was a little bit of a like, okay, yeah, I get the message, but literally everyone in this is hot, you know? So it's like,
Right.
yeah, you know,
Right.
but you know, it's a very minor gripe.
Mm.
You know, it's not like it'd be like I want them to cast the ugliest people, you know, like or something. But you know, but
Yeah.
yeah, that the Barbie movie was very good, very well done, and like
Yeah.
obviously this isn't for everybody.
Right.
But I feel like it's got a broader appeal than
Mhm.
just like little girls or even just
Yeah.
women. I feel like
Right.
most people can get something out of this, you know.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, that is the Barbie movie. Um,
Yeah.
you have not seen Oppenheimer, so I
No,
got
yeah,
yeah.
I loved Barbie. I feel like Oppenheimer's gonna have an uphill battle for me at least.
Yeah, that's fair. No, I will say Oppenheimer is very good.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, no
I
doubt.
don't know, like I would have to see Barbie again to really say for sure like which one I like better.
Mhm.
But yeah, but I brought my friend Zach in to talk about Oppenheimer, so
Yeah.
yeah, let's cut to that. Alrighty, and here to talk about Oppenheimer is my friend Zach. He has been on the podcast and the YouTube channel a few times before. Thanks for joining me yet again, Zach.
I'm glad to be here, man.
So, Oppenheimer. You're one of my few friends who've actually seen it. What did you think? First, general thoughts, I guess, then we'll delve more deeply into it.
Absolutely phenomenal. I loved every second of it.
Mm-hmm.
3 hours and incredible 3 hours, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't get enough.
Yeah, I really liked it, and just for warning everyone, this isn't coming from two like huge Nolan fans, I would say. I mean, like I'm pretty hit or miss with his movies, so it's not
Same,
like
very
yeah,
same, very same.
it's not like we're like, like Christopher Nolan's, the most genius director ever and I want to have his babies or
Yeah,
anything.
yeah, yeah, 100%,
Yeah.
100%.
But yeah, no, it was quite good. I wasn't really sure what to expect going into it. Like, like I kind of knew what to expect because, it was going to be a movie about Oppenheimer, and I wasn't expecting it to be like 3 hours of a bomb, exploding, which
Yeah,
some people seem to think so. But like it's 3 hours, of course, it's going to be a lot of talking and development and stuff. But yeah, like it ended up being a lot more just about Oppenheimer himself, which I think made more sense and I felt like was a little more compelling than if it was just like all about the bomb, I guess, and the development of the
yeah.
bomb.
I'm just glad that they finally gave Oppenheimer a chance to like
Mm,
actually get his story out there,
mm-hmm.
kind of. Because it's a very interesting story if you've ever actually read about Oppenheimer. The creation of the atomic bomb is a very
Right.
enthralling story, in my opinion.
I got the impression from briefly talking to you beforehand that like you had kind of read up and like known more about Oppenheimer and stuff before the movie. So kind of like
Yeah.
what was your like knowledge level going into the movie?
So I have a pretty decent knowledge on Oppenheimer. So going into
Mm-hmm.
the film, especially when they do like the date changing and stuff, where they don't
Mm,
really tell you that
yeah.
it's a different time.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty easy for me to follow along. I know
Sure.
for my girlfriend, it was pretty hard for her to follow along because she
Mm-hmm.
didn't really know like everything and like she was
Yeah.
confused as to which parts were taking place when because they don't really tell you.
Right. I mean, I felt for me it was one of the easiest Nolan films to follow. Honestly,
Easier than Tenet, definitely easier than
oh
Tenet.
yeah, way easier than Tenet. I felt like by the end of the movie, I understand what was going on and what happened when.
Yeah.
It took me a while because at first I thought that like the color scenes were, like what was happening at that board hearing, and then like his past, and then the black and white was like after that, and like
Hmm.
the other hearing, which like it kind of was, but like by the end of the movie, I kind of got like my take from it was that the black and white scenes were like Strauss and like his perspective, and then like the color scenes was like Oppenheimer and like like more his perspective.
Yeah. So from going from what Nolan said, the color segments are subjective, so
Mm,
it may have happened this way, it might not have, because the
okay.
whole way they did the AEC board for his security clearance, that whole thing
Mm.
is a transcript. We don't really have any
Oh,
audio recordings of it, so it's only a
sure.
transcript that they had to go off of.
Okay.
So that's why it's mainly in color, is
Okay.
because like that's probably how it went down, but like we don't
Hmm.
know the exact tone of how they were phrasing things or
Sure.
exactly how things were done.
Right. Which, yeah, like you kind of have to do in a movie anyway.
Yeah.
Like it's not gonna be like a beat for beat like real, what actually happened. But
Yeah.
yeah, I found that interesting too because like it confused me at first when they showed the that scene in black and white with all of them around the table like discussing the hydrogen bomb and stuff.
Yeah.
And then they showed it again, but in color. So I was like, "Oh, these aren't two different timelines or something." And like, it took me like, but by the end, it all made sense for the most part.
Yeah.
For me, I think the hardest thing to follow was the names because they kept name dropping people, and
I will admit that.
I was like, bruh, you said their name once. I don't remember who they are, but I did find it interesting. Like there was one time that they actually like did a flash and showed who it was. It was Patrick Blackett, the James Darcy character, like his old professor.
Oh,
But
yeah. Yeah,
but
yeah.
but like the whole rest of the movie, they just kept like name dropping people, and I'm like, I'm a little lost by who this guy is, but
Yeah.
yeah,
No, I'm 100% with you there.
yeah,
I like I said I've oh, am I lagging?
a little bit, but it'll be fine in your audio, I'm sure.
Okay. Yeah, no, it just I saw my end was lagging.
Mhm.
So bear with me here because for some reason my audio connect or my connection's pretty bad.
Okay, no problem.
Um, but when they were name dropping stuff, like
Hmm.
I've read into it, but like there are so many names that like at some point I kind of got lost too.
Yeah.
I was like, which one's Teller, which one's Lawrence again, and
Right,
like I kept
right.
getting confused. So like that, I will admit that part's a little confusing. I don't know why that one scene was when they did like a flashback, and it's just like it's this guy right here.
Right, like in case you
But the rest of the other
forgot.
scenes, they're just like, yeah, the rest of the other scenes they didn't even mention it,
Maybe it's because
or
he
they didn't
was
even
like
bring
the
it up.
very beginning, and they were like, "Yeah, in
Probably.
case you forgot 3 hours ago, this guy."
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Speaking of like so many people, like there were so many freaking actors in this
Oh
movie.
my gosh,
Like it was almost like,
incredible.
like every character they brought up, I'm like, "Oh, I recognize him. Oh, I recognize that actor. I recognize that actor." It was crazy. Like,
Yeah, the cast was absolutely phenomenal.
which is really cool and interesting because like I feel like not with every film, but I think a lot of Nolan's films stick to like the same main cast in a lot of respects. Like
Hmm.
he casts a lot, which a lot of directors do, but I feel like this is his most like diverse film. Just like having so many different actors is crazy. Like
Yeah,
freaking
so many big names.
yeah, so many big names and so many like people that you don't see that much, like Josh Peck and
Yeah,
like Jack Quaid's been in quite a
Jack
few things
Quaid.
recently, but it was cool to see him. And then Devin Bostick from the
Oh
freaking
yeah,
Diver Wimpy
from
Kid
Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
movies.
Yeah,
And I did not remember. I mean, I didn't even know that Rami Malek was gonna be in it, but
yeah,
he was in it just kind of there to like show up and be like, oh hey, screw you Strauss, kind
yeah.
of thing.
Basically,
Oh, and Casey Affleck. I had no idea Casey Affleck was gonna be in it, and he was just there to be a psycho. No, I guess like
yeah.
thing. But yeah, so many people. It was really cool. But I did really appreciate. Oh, and Gary Oldman. Like I did not know he was gonna be in it, and then he's like, oh yeah, he's Harry Truman. Yeah, I will say I did. I was a little afraid going into this that this was going to be a little bit like Dunkirk because this is like the second like historical movie Nolan's done, I think, with
Yeah,
like with Dunkirk and with that, like the timeline was all over the place. And
yeah.
I was
I'm not a huge fan of Dunkirk.
no, me neither. I was a little afraid this movie was gonna be like that, but I think for the most part, the story was very linear and not hard to follow, which I really appreciated. Like they jumped back and forth between like the hearing, but that made sense because all of the stuff from the past, was being brought up in the hearing. So that's like it made sense. It wasn't hard to follow.
Yeah,
So I did like that. I think like it's like going back to the actors, like all the acting was phenomenal, and I feel like a lot of that kind of acting gets really under appreciated nowadays because like the acting is very subtle. Like there was definitely like emotional scenes, But say like Killian Murphy,
Yeah.
as
No, I know.
Oppenheimer, like it wasn't a
I
whole lot of emotion, but there was at the same time. Just those scenes where it seemed like Oppenheimer was having like a panic attack, or like just freaking out about the bomb or something. Like there was like just like a
mhm.
lot of emotion on his face, but he didn't like have to scream or yell about it.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think the acting was absolutely phenomenal.
Hmm.
I could feel a lot of the dread that like the characters were feel well, not
Mm.
characters, but the people were
Well,
feeling.
yeah,
I mean, characters in the film,
yeah,
yes,
right.
but Killian, like you said, Killian Murphy, like you can feel everything, like especially when the bomb's about to go off, like
Yeah.
the tenseness you feel, especially from like everyone being silent and it just being like an absolutely jaw-dropping moment, is
Hmm.
just unforgettable, honestly.
Yeah, yeah, they did a really good job. Like all the scenes that were supposed to be intense
Like
were.
felt, yeah,
Yeah, like I think they did that just like with the film, like the way they shot it, as well as the acting and the music, like the score.
yeah,
Like all of it just
100%.
blended together to just like really lend to just a really like tense scenes, which I thought was really cool. And I'll be honest, like the first half of the movie, I was like nerding out a bit just with the science stuff, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
Because like I had no, well, for one thing, I knew Kenneth Branagh was in it, but then when he was Niels Bohr, I was like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize um Oppenheimer like knew Niels Bohr. That was pretty interesting. Oh, and yeah, he met Heisenberg, and
Heisenberg.
I was kind of disappointed. Like I was expecting Bryan Cranston, but instead it was like some German guy. But whatever. No, but like just all that stuff was very interesting, and just like the way they built the bomb. Like I didn't know really anything about how they built the bomb besides like ooh nuclear fission. I didn't know
Yeah.
all the stuff behind the scenes. That was very interesting to learn, and like it took them like 2 years to produce enough. What was it, plutonium to
Plutonium and uranium.
and uranium, right?
Their original device was uranium, but
Mm,
once they figured out how long it was taking to create
right,
uranium,
that's right.
they did implosion plutonium implosion
Hmm.
device.
Yeah.
Because you could produce plutonium, you needed less plutonium for an atomic bomb than you would uranium,
Hmm.
and it's like the same speed to produce plutonium, and plutonium's man-made, not an ore like uranium is.
Mm, right. Okay. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, and the stuff where they were talking about the hydrogen bomb as well, kind of sort of being developed in the background by that one guy,
Yeah.
that was pretty interesting. And oh, and all the stuff with like just the whole hearing where he was basically being put on blast for his past political um, actions and stuff, was interesting. Like I had done like some very abbreviated deep dive research before seeing the movie, so I knew some of the stuff, like the trouble he got into, like being accused of being a communist, all that stuff. But it was interesting seeing it like more fleshed out and kind of seeing how it was basically weaponized against him to ruin
Yeah.
his reputation.
Yeah,
Um,
and
yeah,
I'm hoping like with that general audiences who like aren't like I don't know, just kind of more casual viewers, they can
yeah,
also understand to what extent the government went to really
yeah.
screw this guy over.
Mm-hmm.
And especially like I know it'll show a lot of people that like our government's not perfect because a lot of
Mm.
people still nowadays believe that. So,
Right. Yeah, yeah. It was really interesting to see that, and also like it was like I know it's historical, but it was almost like a big twist at the end where like Robert Downey Jr. is the bad guy.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I thought
right.
that was done very well, where like it felt like a big reveal, and you're like, oh, like he's the one pulling the strings on all this. That was
Yep.
pretty interesting. Oh yeah, and David Dasmalchian was in it too. That was interesting. Yeah, they did a really good job, like introducing details and characters, and then circling back by the end and being like, this is why they're important.
Yeah. Um, I think I think Robert Downey Jr.'s performance was absolutely excellent.
Mm-hmm.
I think like he brought the emotion and like the I don't know the cunningness of
Mm.
a politician.
Yeah.
Like being like they know what they're doing, but they always have to maintain that kind of like
Right.
facade,
Yeah.
and there's
Yeah.
always something going on behind the scenes. And I thought his portrayal of that, especially when he's able to switch up
Yeah.
like on like an instant to being like
Mm-hmm.
a face for the cameras and then like being that dirty politician in the
Right.
back.
Well, even just like how two-faced he was with Oppenheimer, like to his face, he was like, "Hey, homie," and then behind his back, he was just trying to
Yeah, he was just
destroy
trying to
him.
destroy him. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that was very good, and it was really cool to see Robert Downey Jr. in a role like this after him being like Iron Man for so long.
Yeah.
Like he just kind of like he had been in other stuff, I guess, but it always felt overshadowed by
By
Iron
his
Man.
Iron Man performance.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, speaking of all that, speaking of Robert Downey Jr., but I guess it was with multiple characters, but the makeup and hair was super good.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
the way they were able to show their age, like it was all very
Yeah.
subtle, but it was also like they obviously put work into it because you definitely felt like they were older or younger or whatever they were supposed to be at that point in time.
Yeah, I agree. Especially when he's receiving the Presidential Medal of Freedom from Lyndon B.
Yeah,
Johnson.
yeah,
Killian Murphy's makeup is excellent.
mm-hmm.
Um, he looks old as hell.
Yeah, yeah, he does.
And
And
they really pulled it off well, especially with practical effects because there's
yeah,
zero CGI.
right. Yeah, which I mean, yeah, and even Robert Downey Jr.'s character, I think like if you watched like some of the scenes that took place before and then like, his scenes at the hearing and stuff, like his hairline looked more receded. Like it was just kind of interesting. Just like they did, it's very subtle, but things you would really see, as someone ages, and they just did a
Yeah,
really good job. And like I did like that they kept Killian Murphy, even like back when he was in college. They
yeah,
they 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 just tried to make him look a little younger, but as opposed to casting a younger actor.
yeah. I agree.
Oh, and yeah, that he almost straight up just murdered his teacher.
Yeah, so that's actually true.
Yeah,
That's
I
actually true.
I mean, I kind of figured
But
they wouldn't make that up, but
it was his tutor, not his teacher.
okay,
So they did take a little bit of an artistic liberty with it,
right,
but I think it worked overall.
right, and I doubt he almost accidentally killed Niels Bohr with it, but
Yeah, no, he didn't. He
yeah,
didn't. That would
and
be crazy.
and I think it's funny. Did he actually meet Niels Bohr in real life?
I'm actually not sure about that. I'm
Okay,
not 100% sure about that, but I do know
sure.
that he did try to poison his tutor.
Yeah, that's funny. And I like how he handled it too. He just took the apple and threw it away, and they were like, "Yeah, all right,
Yeah.
fine." Like there was like no question.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's pretty good.
so while we're talking about, I mean, I what if I can bring it to another topic,
Yeah.
um, there were some scenes, that I think I think the sex scenes were completely unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even gonna lie.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the scene with Florence Pugh at the beginning,
Sure.
where they finish having sex, right?
Yeah.
And then she's just like, read this to me, and then he's like, I have become death, destroyer of worlds.
Yeah.
Like they wasted that line, that perfect line that goes so hard, and
Yeah.
they used it right then and there. And then,
At least they
and
said it
then,
again later.
well, they said it again later, but if you listen, because I noticed
Mm-hmm.
this on my second watch,
Mm.
they just cut the audio from that scene with Florence
Oh no,
Pugh and just
really?
reinserted it. Yeah.
Ah.
He doesn't even say it again.
Eh,
I noticed that on my second watch through because
gotcha.
you can hear Florence Pugh breathing in the background.
Really? Oh my gosh.
Yes.
That's funny. Yeah, I would say yeah. I mean, especially the like that scene where they're just like sitting around in the nude. Like that was like
That
the
was
most unnecessary. Like I felt like the only one that I feel like made I don't know any sort of artistic sense maybe was like the one in like the boardroom where his wife is imagining him. Like it
that
was weird, but yeah.
that made me I'm not even gonna lie, that took me out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I was sitting with my girlfriend and it
Oh,
took me out of it completely and I just started laughing.
yeah,
I
I
thought it
know.
was so funny because it pans over his shoulder
Yeah.
and then he's just naked.
Yeah, I
It's
know.
just
That was like really surprising. I was like, what the hell?
I was like, what is happening? And
Uh,
like I get the significance of it
hmm.
and like I understand like what it's like supposed to mean,
Yeah.
but like it was just so jarring
Yeah.
that it was like I did not see it coming.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but I get that, I guess they were trying to show he's a horn dog, but yeah, they were a little
Yeah.
kind of unnecessary.
But I think Florence Pugh gave a really good performance
Yeah, for when she was there.
when she was actually on screen before she
Yeah.
killed herself.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
Yeah. Or
Um,
was murdered.
spoilers, but it's
Yeah,
just like
spoilers
it's a real
again.
life event. It's a real
Right,
life
I
event
know.
that
It's like
already happened.
spoilers, yeah. So have you read the biography that is based off of?
I have not. No,
Okay.
actually, I want to read it though.
Yeah, me too. I kind of forgot that this movie was based off of a biography, and then when I saw it in the credits, I was like, oh, I kind of want to read that.
Yeah. So I do want to read that.
Yeah.
But I think otherwise I don't so yeah, I haven't read the biography, but from what I saw in the movie, it's incredibly accurate.
Okay.
Especially the black and white scenes.
Right.
Um,
That's good.
but yeah, so I think overall I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, me
I
too.
the scene where he's giving the speech after they dropped the bomb,
Hmm.
like that scene is terrifying.
Yeah, they did such a good job, like with the skin peeling off the lady's face, and just like the
Yep,
the
and
uh,
like
the
the
audio.
lights,
Yeah.
and then like he steps on the body,
Hmm.
and like it's horrifying.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that the movie overall has an extremely good message on
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
why we shouldn't have these weapons really.
Right. Yeah, I think they did a very good job, like showing what happened, but also, it wasn't like glorifying
Yeah,
it at
it
all.
really showed what
Hmm.
cost came with being the one who created
Yeah.
the atomic
Hmm.
bomb. Like you may have created something that like will go down in history, but like
Yeah.
the irreparable damage that you've caused from like destroying all those lives
Yeah.
is just like it just shows how hard it is to live with something like that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that seems somewhat accurate to how he might have felt in real life
Yeah.
afterwards. But yeah, I found that very. I honestly found that stuff, like what happened like after the bomb test and beyond, like I felt was the most interesting parts
No, I
of the
agree.
movie for
I
me.
agree.
Like I
I
think
agree.
I did enjoy the first half. Like if I'm gonna be like nitpicky, I felt like some scenes felt edited odd, like felt like abruptly cut or something, which I found kind of odd, especially for like a Nolan movie.
I can think of one cut
Yeah,
that
there was
bothered me.
probably like
Like one specific one.
three, and I wouldn't even say they like bothered me. I just kind of noticed. And I did by like the middle, I did feel very slightly like I was like, man, this is kind of long. But then like 5 minutes after that, I got into it until like the very end, and I was like, oh shoot, like oh the movie's over already.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So yeah, what did you think of the Einstein scenes,
Okay,
especially the jump
okay.
scare?
So yeah, so that one Einstein scene where it's near
Uh,
the end of the movie
yeah.
and Oppenheimer sends his lawyer away in his car and then Einstein appears is
That was good.
that I listen, I know it's not trying to be funny, but you
No,
can't
but
do that with a major historical figure and have it not be funny.
yeah, it's just like, oh, it's Einstein.
It's just like where did he come from?
Yeah, like it.
That's just my question.
Like it kind of
Like
looked
was he
like.
waiting there
I mean, it
the whole
kind of
time?
looked like he was walking forward, but it was just like a field behind him. So was he just
Yeah.
like walking
No,
around?
it's
Like
just
what?
he's just walking around
Oh,
aimlessly. Yeah, no, I thought that was absolutely hysterical.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but
I really liked that scene. That they showed from two different perspectives. Like
yeah,
they showed about like halfway through when Einstein's hat blows off and Oppenheimer says something to him, and then Einstein won't talk to Strauss, but like Strauss was so obsessed with himself.
with himself that yeah, I love that.
That
That was
was
so excellent. And the final
yeah,
line at the end of
yeah,
the movie, it's just like,
that
do you
was so
think
good.
remember when we thought we'd set off a chain reaction that would
Hmm.
destroy the world? And then he's like, yeah, and he says, I think we already did.
Yeah,
Like that is the most incredible line I
yeah,
think I've ever heard.
that was
Like
yeah.
it's just like it's such a high note to end on,
There was like a
or like
mic
not even a
drop.
high note. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not even like a high note. It's just like a
No.
damn. That makes
Yeah.
you think.
Yeah, it was very intense, and yeah, just like the actor who plays Einstein, like the look on his face was great. It was just very expertly done. Honestly, it's
Yeah.
very good.
There another scene with Einstein where like Oppenheimer first talks to him before they're creating the bomb, and when he
Hmm.
brings him the calculations initially,
Yeah.
um, he's talking to this German guy,
Hmm.
and this scene made me laugh too. I want to talk about like this scene because I thought it was also very funny.
Hmm.
So Einstein walks around, but Oppenheimer says something to the German guy, and the German guy just says, "Trees are the most beautiful structures," and that's
Oh
all he
yeah,
says. That's
yeah,
all he
yeah.
says.
That yeah that yeah
You
that
just never see him again, and I was just like, "What kind of line is
yeah
that?"
yeah. That
Like
was funny.
I thought he was gonna be like a spy or something because he
No,
just like was acting
it's
so
such a
like
weirdo.
suspicious.
Yeah,
And there's just like I don't trust this guy. But
yeah,
that scene maybe gave me a good chuckle.
yeah, yeah. I'm pretty sure I laughed at that part too. Because there was such like an awkward pause afterwards too,
Yeah,
and he's
yeah.
like,
Oppenheimer was just like, "Cool, buddy. Yeah, all right."
yeah, I need to talk to Einstein here.
Yeah,
You go play with the trees. You know,
yeah. It was so
yeah, that
funny.
was good. That was good. Is there anything else you want to mention before we wrap this up?
Um, well, I just want to say I think Cillian Murphy probably deserves
Mm,
Best Actor.
yeah.
And honestly, I Robert Downey Jr. versus Ryan Gosling for Best Supporting Actor.
Right. Yeah. Oh
Um,
my God. Yeah.
but overall, my final thoughts, it's like it's easily my favorite film of all time now.
Well.
Um, I will say that because I've seen it twice now, and each time was like the exact same as watching it the first time. I mean, the
Mm,
second time was the exact same as watching it the first time.
that's
I'm
impressive.
going to see it again tomorrow.
Hmm.
Um, and like the movie goes by so fast, it doesn't even feel like 3 hours.
Yeah.
And like just everything is so incredible. Just like the absolute, like for me at least, the absolute feeling of just like terror and
Mm,
dread was just like
hmm.
it's not like a good feeling, but it's just like
Right.
it's just so intense
Yeah.
from the film that it's just like wow. But yeah, I absolutely adored it. I think that everyone involved did an absolutely great job.
Yeah.
I don't think there was any bad acting at all.
No. No.
Um, I can't think of like I really can't think of a lot of problems with the film other
Yeah.
than one specific cut,
Hmm.
but that's it.
Yeah.
And that one specific cut is right after they launch the bomb and Oppenheimer's celebrating. He calls
Hmm.
his wife and he says, "Take the sheets in," and then
Oh
she
yeah.
smiles, and then it fades to black.
Yeah. That was
And it
okay.
was
Yeah.
awkward. It was really awkward. It was just like, why did it fit? Like, there's no other like cut like that in the movie.
That is true. Yeah. That did kind of stick out like a sore thumb. Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
just like
That
it
was
did not
odd.
it didn't feel in place.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's all I gotta say, honestly.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, I very much enjoyed it. I didn't really have any expectations going in. Like, I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
But like, it ended up being like a kind of like a a biopic slash almost like a courtroom drama, like political thriller
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah.
And it really kept my attention way more than I expected. Like, it was all just expertly done. It was very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, normally to close out the show, well, I say normally, but we've done this once before, but I like to end with some of the dumbest things I've seen on the internet recently.
Oh
So
yeah.
I don't know if you have anything in mind. I've got a couple things in mind. um I've got one's aggravating and one's just kind of funny. But so there's this really stupid review by I don't know if you're familiar with Grace Randolph. So somehow she's a successful like reporter slash YouTuber, I guess. But she's got like some of the worst opinions ever. But
Hmm.
she has an official review for Oppenheimer, and it is rotten. And this is from Rotten Tomatoes, and her review reads a misfire for Nolan, too talky, and like many of his films, lacks emotion. The story is hard to follow and unfair to history, but the film looks good with some good performances, even if most of the characters are unlikable. Also,
Oh my god.
not a good.
Characters.
Yeah, also not a good use of IMAX.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh
Oh
yeah,
my
yeah.
gosh.
You've seen it in IMAX and normal
I've seen it.
digital.
Yep, I've seen it both.
Was IMAX worth it? Because I mean, for me,
IMAX was it's very different.
okay.
So
Even like, because most of the
it's
movies talking and stuff, so like,
I prefer it in
it,
IMAX because it's more immersive, but
mm,
I mean it's good in either format.
sure, sure. Yeah, but yeah, that's just such a okay. Like
Yeah,
too talky. Like, have you never seen a drama before, Grace? Like what?
yeah, I know, right?
Like
It's
what is
ridiculous.
like what is like? I wanted to see the bombs drop on drop
My
on Japan. There was no
the
deaths.
yeah, I like the one. Have you seen the one where it's just like Oppenheimer's a 3-hour film about the atomic bomb, but doesn't feature a single Japanese person?
Like, is that a serious review?
Yes.
Oh god, it's so dumb. Like, yeah.
Yeah, this is another one of my favorite ones.
Mm,
People see this is from Lee Lay. I don't know who she is. She's a teacher at some university.
hmm
She said, "People seem to love Oppenheimer, but I'll just say, I was uncomfy watching yet another movie about a tortured white male genius when the victims of the atrocities glossed over by the script, Japanese people, intern Japanese Americans, and Native Americans had no voice." And then this is the best part.
Glossed over.
There's a com if those have nothing to do with the movie, first of
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
I mean the Japanese people maybe, but
Not the
Native
internment camps
Americans,
and
they
well,
returned first of all, they returned the land to the Indians. Let's just make that clear.
yeah.
That land has been returned to the Indians,
Oh, okay.
and it
Cool.
wasn't taken. It wasn't even like a
Right.
large. I mean, like, I don't even want to get into it. But my favorite part about this is the community note that says Robert Oppenheimer was Jewish. His friends and relatives were murdered by Nazis.
Mhm.
Specifically for not being white. Yeah,
All right.
it's crazy, but yeah.
That's fun. Yeah,
All right.
I had another dumb
Oh, yeah,
thing.
go for it.
Let me see if I can share my screen. So my friend, it's really stupid, but it's kind of funny. My friend like spam messaged me. Apparently there's like this weird meme going around on some weird corner of the internet where it's just like sped up, like bears doing stuff sped up with this annoying ass music. And it's like there's so many of them. Like, let me find the other ones, but there's like so many. They're just
Oh my
walking.
god.
And it's all got this music.
It's so rare.
I know, it's random stuff. It's so stupid, but it's like great at the same time. Just bears doing bear stuff.
Oh
Yeah.
my god.
So, but yeah, he sent like 12 of them. It's insane. All right, well, that is the episode. Thanks so much for joining
right.
me. You got any social media or anything to plug?
Yeah, follow me on Twitter at PeachyEXP. That's it though. Just follow me on Twitter.
All right, cool. Yeah, and check us out, casual_experts on Instagram and like casual experts pretty much everywhere else. So, and check out our YouTube channel, Casual Experts. The links to all that stuff is in the description. And yeah, we will see you next time.
Thanks for having me on, man.
Absolutely.